Good evening and welcome back to a special rebroadcast of one of our favorite shows, one of the most accomplished people we've ever had on the show. This evening is going to be a rebroadcast of Toby Francis. He is an incredible man, has worked with some of the biggest bands in rock and roll. We hope you enjoy this episode. We just wanted to reach out to you and say thanks for your patience. We came off the air for a couple weeks so I could get some rest and recuperation. We're just going so hard this year. One of those good problems, you know. I'd like to thank my crew. I couldn't do this thing. We couldn't do this thing without each other. We do it as a team. Our dear, dear good friend, you hear about us talk about him all the time. The one and only Mikey Brown is with us on set this evening. He's the guy that makes this whole thing come to you. He sits back there and works the RF, the audio, the switching. He does it all. He is a badass and the head of audio here at Sound Image, and a dear, dear friend. And our good, good friend who's back from tour, who I couldn't do it without him, and I sure found out while he was gone, our good friend Kyle Thomas, my co-host. We wanted to wish you guys a happy Thanksgiving. We are obviously in my shop and it is working right now. We're doing stuff, so I apologize for the loud sounds, but that is just a working shop. We will be back soon with some really great episodes. This month in December, as of the 2nd, we've got Tana Douglas, and she's going to come in and talk about her book Loud. We've got some really great guests lined up for the month. We're going to have Scott Perlman and Marty Kell, Alan Kraft, and Frank Scamboloni. It's going to be a fun month. We've got a lot of good Thursdays lined up for you. Come back and see us then. But this evening, enjoy this episode on us, and we want to wish you a happy Thanksgiving. Thanks for coming to the show. We appreciate you. Good evening and welcome back to another edition of Beyond the Backstage Pass. You have tuned in on a special night. All kinds of new things are happening. This is as a result of the fact that we are coming back to life. Sound Image is coming back to life. Many of my guests are. My co-host is out on a show mixing as we speak. He misses us. He actually told me he felt like he was being left out or something. I want you to know, Kyle, we would never leave you out. I can barely do this without you, buddy. We miss you, and thank you. People that do the comments know that Kyle is hopefully going to take care of the comments on both and all the streams where you guys come in at while he's mixing a show. Now, Kyle, don't do it if it messes up your gig, man. But he's got that, so feel free to send your comments in. They'll be handled and addressed like they normally would be. We've got an incredibly special guest. I'll get to that in a minute. We're extraordinarily lucky. But let's talk about going forward in the future. We've had to send our lead wall out. Oh, Mikey, I don't think we turned the little red lights on on you. We're sitting in, we've changed the whole set. So we kind of went back, we reverted a little bit back to, hey, Sue, come through and throw the freedom bars on for me, will you, baby? We've reverted back a little bit to our old place where we, have that actual line array behind me of the Anyas. We pulled the lead wall down. We're back to this silly sign on some truss. But this is what we do. We're happy to be here. We're happy that you're here this evening. I want to thank my last week's guest. I'm really lucky to have some amazing friends. Last week was a wonderful visit from the lovely Jan and Muffy Alejandro from Jan and JNL Cases. I love those people. They were here. It was super fun. Thank you for being here last week. We had a great, great time with them. I'm about to have my dear friend Sue Kearney come on the set. She's over here doing some S6L training, and she's going to flip on some lights behind me, paying no mind to the people behind the person behind the curtain. We also have Winston Domin in the house doing his thing. We're lucky to have him. Thank you guys for being here. Mikey B has been working his butt off. That's our executive producer and switcher. We want to thank him for all he's been doing to get things switched around and to be able to do this today. We're on a full-on skeleton crew, so I want to thank the folks that are helping us do that. Thank you so much. Also, as you know, we support things that we believe in. So our brothers and sister over at Big Love Army, which of course is Rick Allen from Def Leppard and his lovely wife Lauren Moreau, have the Big Love Army. Reach out to it. It's a great site on Facebook. If you want to get some positive vibes going on, check them out. They're doing really well, and spoke with them recently, and I told them I would mention those guys. The people at Loving Hands for Stagehands. You know, some of us aren't weathering this as well as others. This has been a tough little march through this last many months. So John Del Rio from Gallagher Staging, one of our sponsors, and a dear friend, my brother, and some of other of us put this site together for folks that maybe need to talk, get some resources, if their head's a little scrambled, things are a little rough. Reach out over to the folks at Loving Hands for Stagehands. A very a tragically named page, but well-meaning and very cool. So check it out if you need that resource. They're there waiting on you. And I want to shout out to one of our sponsors, Mr. Hat, an extraordinary graphic designer who does our logo, has done many things for us. Also, the singer for The Infirmities, makes album covers and these incredible rock and roll posters. If you need any graphic design work, reach out to those guys. I'm going to get right to it. When I want to thank, last but not least, in any way not least, my dear friends at, you know, recently we lost the incredible John Rigney, really a leader, a pioneer in the business and video and LED and projection. He's one of the first guys to bring it to the table. He blew it up. He passed away earlier this year. It crushed all of us. We were absolutely devastated by it. His partner in crime, Cameron Brown, who's a dear friend, he's getting back to business. He's working his little heart out. He dragged the lead wall out of here to put it on his shop, like I mentioned earlier. We appreciate him a great deal. I got some Glenn Levitt coming your way. Cameron Brown, thank you for all you do. Thanks to the great people at Large Screen Video. We salute them a great deal. Thank you for all they've done for us. Now let's get to it. This evening, I am so lucky to have, listen, the trajectory of this guy's career is, I've followed with deep interest from afar for many years. He is literally one of the top dudes in the game. I just cannot state this enough. He's legendary in what he does. He is one of the most respected audio engineers in our business. He's been in the game over 40 years. He's mixed some of the largest acts in this industry, from ZZ Top to Aerosmith to Guns N' Roses. The list is so long. One I enjoyed a great deal. We were out on a thing, and I don't even think you even knew I was there, but we were doing a Mastodon Mars Volta thing, and I was and I was staring over his shoulder, frankly, I was trying to steal some of his tricks, but but yeah, extraordinary. And you know, some of the big rap artists, to Kanye and Travis Scott, Justin Bieber, just to name a few. Katy Perry, I think most recently with Ariana Grande. We're going to talk about it's the one and only Toby Francis. Good evening, Toby Francis. How are you, sir?
I'm just fine. Thanks for having me on your show.
Oh, buddy, it's absolutely our pleasure, truly our pleasure. Thank you, sir. You know, on the show, we tend to start out, we're only going to be format in this one little way. First of all, I'd like to ask your permission to interview a little bit non-linearly. I'm going to bounce around a little bit, if that's okay with you. Thank you.
Sure.
But the one question we tend to ask, and the audience seems to dig this question, and then I'll freewheel it a little more, is how'd you get in the business? What brought you to the live entertainment production industry?
I had planned on a career in the military, and I was emulating my grandfather, who had been a career military officer, and it was just post-Vietnam.
Okay.
Vietnam War had just wound down, and I was going through ROTC, junior ROTC in high school, and they'd offered me a scholarship and a commission if I wanted to continue in the Air Force. And my grandfather came to visit me and told me not to do it.
Wow.
Said that he was struggling with some of the things he had done in his career.
Sure.
And knowing me is better than anyone, and he was, my idol growing up, he convinced me to pick another direction.
Wow.
So I was kind of at a loss. And my best friend at the time, his sister worked at a record store, and she got free concert tickets all the time. Whatever tickets they didn't sell, she would give us. And I went to a Charlie Daniels show. It was Marshall Tucker and Charlie Daniels.
Wow, good show.
And during set change, she goes, "Oh, I know what you should do," because we were talking about career options. And she goes, "You should be a roadie." And I said, "What's a roadie?" And she pointed out, and she was dating a drummer in a local band. And I expressed interest, and her brother, my best friend, of course, wanted to do it too. And she got us a job with that band. And they had a really good sound engineer, a guy named Rick Watts.
Okay.
His nickname was 100 Watts,
Great
which
nickname.
was an awesome sound man nickname. And he was a really good engineer. And they had an excellent 3-way stereo PA, which in 1974 was not the norm for local bands, and a Tascam Model 10 console. They had real gear. He introduced me to the craft in a very well thought out way. And then about 6 weeks later, after he was showing me stuff at gigs, he got the flu real bad. And I got to mix a show.
Wow.
And I was 16 and did a good enough job that Rick started taking nights off here and there. And I started mixing more shows. And one of the guys in that band, one of the horn players, it was a 10-piece band. They had a rhythm section and a horn section. Got a job with the Crystals. It was a 60s band.
Yeah.
This was 10, 15 years later. And they were doing a national tour. And I went and joined up with them, did that for 2 years. And that kind of showed me the country and all the different options in different parts of the country. And I settled on Boston.
Oh, yeah.
Because there was tons of work up there. There were 400 nightclubs in the mid-'70s in Boston that had live entertainment.
Oh, my goodness.
So if you wanted, the drinking age was 18.
That's right.
And you've got like 11 big colleges right in the area. There was an abundance of places for a sound engineer to work. And I kind of flourished with the local bands there for a while. And one thing led to another. And when I was 22, I went to work for the Joe Perry Project. And
oh, wow. Good gig.
it was just from there, a better gig.
Fantastic. That sounds really exciting. Yeah, Boston's a very unique place, centrally located. You're around a lot of opportunity. Yeah, I could see that working out really well. Sounds like you landed well and chose well. Very cool. I know I mentioned a minute ago that you work with Ariana Grande. Is there any special things that go with that? I know is this a track act? Does she bring a band? How does that work?
There's a band. There's tracks as well. It's a 4-piece band.
Okay.
Most of what you hear at the shows are live. The background vocals are recorded because she does all the vocals on the record. So we tried having background singers at one point. It didn't sound the same.
I bet.
So we just used the backing tracks for that. She sings the leads live. She's the best singer I've ever worked with.
Extraordinary singer.
In my life.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
We pad the transmitter 37 dB or she will overload.
37 dB.
Yeah. I've never seen anybody do that.
That's a belter right there. Yeah.
Well, and it helped because they staged the show with her in front of the PA for most of the shows. Her singing that level, I can make it work.
I've never heard of you not making any effort you take on work, but yeah, it sounds like a great accommodation and a wonderful artist.
And she's awesome to work with. She's very involved in everything. I've watched her become the artist she is today. It's been an honor to play a role in that. I actually DJ'd at her wedding last Saturday.
Oh, that's very sweet.
Yeah.
I would love to hear a DJ set from the great Toby Francis. Did you get to choose the songs or did she offer you some choices?
Yeah.
Very good. You just made sure it sounded really good and happened on the right way. Is that what happened?
Well, we went to great lengths to help her have the wedding she wanted.
That's very sweet.
She's very popular and has very little privacy, and she wanted a private ceremony, and they put a team together that we did everything you could do to make sure she got what she deserved.
Well, I'm glad you were a part of that. That sounds
Yep.
very, very sweet and very righteous. Very cool. Working with Aerosmith. Now, I've done that, and I have many friends that have. Aerosmith has a long, rich tradition. They've been kind of mini incarnations. What was your experience working with Aerosmith?
Well, I started with Joe Perry with his solo band.
Sure.
And I started as a mixer with his solo band, and his guitar tech got sick and had to go home to deal with his illness. And we were trying to figure out a way to get through the next few shows. And the tour manager was a sound engineer. So he took over mixing. I took over Joe's guitars to get through those few shows. And Fred, the tech, never came back. So we did the rest of the leg that way. And I liked it better. I mean, Joe was playing through 9 4x12s.
Damn.
And we were doing mostly big clubs, but still clubs. So it wasn't that fun to mix.
Sounds rough.
I much preferred being behind the amp line than in front of it.
I understand.
And then a couple years into that, they decided to put Aerosmith back together. And Joe had the core of his crew. It was myself, my brother, a guy named Rick Submergin. We went, my first official Aerosmith job was breaking into a warehouse and stealing all their equipment from their previous manager.
That's very Aerosmithy.
Yeah. There was a lots of larceny and different petty crimes involved with working for that band.
Yes, sir.
But that started I think I was with Joe for about 3 years before Aerosmith, and then with Aerosmith for about 7 years total.
Wow, that's quite a run.
And then I started, Night Bob was the front of house guy at the time. I stayed mixing, doing Joe's guitars, and we ended a tour early in '86 because of Steven's issues.
Sure.
We stopped the tour 6 months early, and we were going to go back in the studio, and the record company said not till you clean up your act. And we did 2 more stadium shows. We did Foxborough, Sullivan Stadium,
wow,
the old Patriot Stadium,
big show,
and a baseball stadium in I think, was it Rochester or Syracuse? It was the New York State Fair. Gotcha. They would do a big show in a baseball stadium. We did the New York show first, and then the Boston show second. And Night Bob wasn't available. He had gone on to another job, and the band couldn't agree on who was going to mix. So Brad Whitford suggested that I mix those 2 shows because we had already started demoing. All the demos we had done for the previous record I had done. And everybody in the band said they loved the way their tape sounded, but no one realized that I mixed each tape specifically for each person.
Yeah.
And I didn't intentionally do that to be deceptive. I did it to not get bitched at by whoever. Yeah. And the psychological side of this is, if there's anything that I have mastered, is the art of making people feel comfortable with my abilities very quickly.
Incredibly important. I think it's something that's the bedside manner. It's the difference between a doctor without bedside manner and a doctor with bedside manner, and it's a critically important part of our job that not everybody understands is necessary to be successful in this game.
We are selling confidence first and foremost.
First and foremost, sir. Yes, sir.
And if you approach it that way, you're much better served. You know, the technical side of this, I won't say it's easy now, but it's well documented.
Yeah.
Every different approach to it. There's 5 different ways of doing everything right. Now, all the consoles sound good, all the PAs sound good. You know, it's just a matter of doing your homework and being prepared. You know, that stuff is easy to learn. The learning how to instill confidence and somebody. Now that's a little harder. You know, it's a lot of subliminal stuff. We started an Ari tour once, and she was struggling with some elements of the show she wasn't happy with. And after the show, she went, God, I look out at front of house and I see 14 terrified people, you know, and that does not make me feel right inside.
Yeah.
And she goes, thank God I see Toby sitting in front of him with that. I've got this look on his face.
Yes, sir.
You know, and that she said, I'll just focus on that to get through this.
It's a big thing. Yeah.
Well, you know what? If you do it right, if the artist feels that you care absolutely as much as they do, you know, like I make them know that I'll fist fight everybody in the room to make it the way she wants it if I have to. I will not let anybody do something I know she does not want to do, and have done that for her many, many times. So she defaults to that comfort a lot. I mean, I think that, and the same thing, Katy Perry said some extremely complimentary things along the same lines, Kanye too. And then, you know, people say a lot of stuff about Kanye. I personally feel Kanye is one of the greatest entertainers of all time.
Well, you know, to speak, we're jumping around a little bit, but let's dig into that a little bit. So I mentioned, and we have the little roadie groups, and we make a lot of different memes, and I threw one up the other day, and it got quite a controversial response. And I know that it will do this, and I kind of do it as almost bait, but it's a picture of our dear friend and a recently departed Neil Peart, and it says, "Oh, you make your own beats? That's cute." And then there's a picture of Kanye sitting in front of a board. And of course, then everybody comes out and they take that very harshly, and they're not getting it's kind of a play between what Neil Peart does versus what Kanye does. It's not in any way meant to be a dig on Kanye's incredible ability. The guy is kind of a genius in his own right.
He's a genius in many rights.
Yes,
in many different ways.
Yes, and he's a special cat. I mean, you can't argue with the success that he's had, and so I'll let me put that out there right now. In no way is that meant to be a dig on Kanye. It's more of a thing about the difference between electronic and traditional drumming, and that's more what it is. But you're not wrong. There is a lot. I think he is unfairly kind of chastised in certain circles, and I'm not always sure I understand why that is.
I feel the same way. My personal experience with him has been nothing but positive.
Yeah, that's great.
And he's made me a much better mixer. The stuff he's had me figure out how to do for him, like the San Pablo tour, he wanted it to sound, he wanted everyone in the room to hear the same thing he hears in the studio through the big monitors.
No kidding.
That was it. He wanted it to be felt the same way. So he signed off on, we had 285 Co-12s in an arena.
Wow.
I had 64 of the CP 218 subs.
Oh,
I normally use 12 of them in an arena.
Did you say 64?
64.
Hello.
We hit, there was a sample that his producer uses to accent. It's 23.5 hertz.
Okay.
And it would make everyone in the room exhale at the same time.
Oh my goodness.
And it would hit 153 dB C-weighted.
Oh my goodness.
Goodness.
That'll move some organs around right there.
Well, in the very last row of the arena, it sounded exactly like he wanted, and he checked. The first day he walked around, the minute he knew we had done what he wanted, he was happy.
You know, this sounds very much like the Prince approach. You know, I've interacted with Prince, and Prince was very much a hands-on that kind of guy. He'd be out at front of house, jabbing you in the back, you know, telling you what he needed, what he wanted, walking the stadium. This was not uncommon. Yeah.
Well, what gets me is the people that are turned off by the artist being involved. I want the artist involved.
Yeah.
I've become the mixer I am by having the artist involved. I want them happy first, their audience happy second.
Yeah.
You know,
Sure.
and from there, I consider myself an advocate for both the artist's point of view and the audience's point of view.
Well, that's very clear in your approach and the word on the street. I mean, I've seen your work, I've heard your work. I guess it's a better way to put it. I've heard your work multiple times, and I know that's about. And I think that you're not wrong. You know, this is a little bit of a place where certain folks that do the front of house and mix diverge a little bit. You're not wrong. There's some folks that struggle with artist contact and interaction on that level, and some folks that embrace it and try to give the artist what they need. And, you know, my theory on this has always been, and I've expressed it wide and loud, and I'll go to any rooftop, is when everybody gets their needs met, it's a win. So that's kind of the goal I'm always after. And, you know, the boss is the boss, and if the boss wants us to get coverage in every single square inch of that building, and everybody get a very similar experience, give him what he wants. If it's technically doable, it should be done.
Well, the smart ones check.
Yeah, that's right.
So if you're not on top of it, they know.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, the more involved you are with the process, and the more you involve them. Like when I start with a new band, like I'm over at a rehearsal place here in LA working. If it's a new band, I don't go to the console at first. The first couple of days, I just sit in the room, watch them play. I interact with the drummer to make sure all the drum mics are out of his way. And
sure.
If you do that right, and like the drummer knows that I care about how his ride cymbal sounds,
right? You
know, or the little weird cymbal that, you know, he's afraid no one's going to hear, you know,
his little splash or something.
If you do those first couple days that way, then the band knows that you're their advocate too.
Yeah.
You know, they know that you care as much about them as they do, and that's important to them. So if you get the rapport going with the band, by the time you get behind the console, it's an easier process. And then I generally track during rehearsal and mix when no one's there, build the mixes, and I don't let anyone hear it till it's how I want it to sound. So I've already got the rapport going with the band guys by the time they come in and hear it, and it's usually exceeds what they expect, because I've got some big monitors, and I've got a way of presenting it, so it's very impressive.
I bet you do.
And that you do that right, and you leave rehearsal with everybody's level of energy is rises, the excitement grows, because it's a team sport.
Absolutely.
And if you approach it as a team, and you know, I'm just one of the team members, but I don't score. I set them up with the shots, they score, and that's how the process is supposed to work. Well, if you do that, next thing you know, you're best friends with everybody involved too.
Yeah.
Or at least they feel that way.
Well, do you know that in our world, and you know, I have an odd finger on the pulse that maybe a lot of folks do what we do maybe don't, because again, the closed roadie groups, I have a lot of interactions with a lot of different folks in many years of doing this. Did you know that you are known right up there with the great Scotty Ross as one of the nicest guys in the rock and roll business? Did you know that's how they talk about you?
I did not know that.
Yes, sir.
That's nice to know.
It is, and I think that's something. I think it comes with not just because you're pleasant and it's because you work well with folks and you make people feel part of a thing, and it goes back to that team spirit deal. And so it's a nice thing. It's, you know, that's not necessarily the way of all top A1s. You know this, I know this. There's many different ways to skin a cat. Your approach seems to be widely regarded and respected.
Well, I respect everyone else's needs and stuff too. Like, I don't blast music through the PA for more than 10 minutes a day. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that. I don't go to sound check anymore, typically. But when I used to,
yeah,
I went out of my way to make sure that nobody's inconvenienced by what I have to do to have the show the way it needs to be. Where a lot of people go out of they check forever, and you know,
Yeah.
impedes on other people's space, they need to do.
Sure.
And it's all important.
Yes.
You know, the confetti is important. The lasers are important. The pyro is important. Every part of it. And I never lose sight of that. And it shows when you need something from somebody that they accommodate you in any way you need. I stopped doing sound check because I fuck with shit too much. And the SC I had on the last tour with Ari, and I use a combination of digital stuff and analog stuff. And there's a lot of stuff to manage, and he has to manage it. So he suggested that I stop coming, and it did make a difference. It got better.
Well, great. Yeah. It sounds like you have good working relationships, and it's critical. And this, again, it's a team effort. And
well, the right SE makes all the difference in the world at this point. The right stage manager, the right, all the critical points. It all adds up to a better final result.
Well, it's we're in a different environment than the one we came up with initially. There was
oh god, yeah.
And especially with somebody you mentioned, Katy Perry. This is not an insignificant show. This woman brings a serious production to an arena, to a show, and a lot of different disciplines need to get their stuff going well. And so it makes perfect sense working with Katy Perry. I know that she's one of those artists that likes to come and meet new techs and show her appreciation. And I don't remember that early in my career. That was not necessarily a way. That wasn't a thing. Always felt in many acts more of an employee. And I've noticed there's a lot more gratitude from the artists that they come and they make sure you understand that you're a part of a thing. And how's it working with Katy Perry?
Katy knew everybody's name on the tour.
Yeah, she's amazing.
She knew everybody by the first name, and there was 100 and some of us plus drivers.
Yeah.
There was a shitload of drivers. She's very personable. If you're not doing something the way she wants, she will come and call you by name and tell you to do it differently. She's very on top of every aspect. But she's a joy to work with.
Yeah.
And the team around her are literally the gold standard in our industry. Alan Doyle's her stage manager, Jay Smith, her production manager. It's just the best of the best. And Kim Hilton, the coordinator, she's the finest.
Yeah, like you said, the gold standard. I know Bradley Maddox went out and took over some stuff with her and was doing front of house, and he couldn't say enough good things. And if you know Bradley Maddox, he is not an emotive type of person. So for him to come back and say, man, that was an experience, that was a joyful thing.
If you put Brad with any talented artist, everyone will have a great time.
Yep, he's an extraordinary. His office is about 40 feet away from me. He's a dear man, and he's a love. He was here earlier today. He's a great guy and extraordinarily talented.
He's one of the best mixers there is.
He's got an ear on him and makes a hell of a Pro Tools rig too. Quite a guy. And him and Gregory are teamed up here in our building, and we share space together, and we're very lucky to have him. Mixing for ZZ Top. Now this is ZZ Top. 50 years in the game. I mean, that's quite an achievement. What was your experience with the great ZZ Top?
Well, my brother has been Billy Gibbons' guitar tech for 20 some years. So I had an edge going in there.
A little nepotism, that's pretty.
Yeah, and Billy is very fond of him, so it helped me. But Billy was kind of elusive with me till after the first show.
Really?
And he doesn't use monitors. He listens to the PA on stage. He's old school that way.
Yeah.
And then, we rehearsed for 5 weeks, and I couldn't get him to play a song.
No kidding, really?
We would get together about 1:00 every day, and the first thing we do is go eat lunch. Then we get back about 3:30, and we would joke around. We would tell old stories till dinner time, and then we'd go have dinner. And then we'd come back, and he'd look at his watch and go, well, it's getting late, so we'll reconvene tomorrow. Well, they did that for 5 weeks. And
Wow.
I asked, and being the new guy, I said, is there any way we could run through the show? And he goes, run through the show.
I can so imagine this moment. I can so, yeah.
Stroked his beard.
Yep, that's right. Yep.
He goes, explain that to me. And I go, well, that's when you start the show and you play all the songs so that the new guy has some fucking idea what's going on at the first show we're doing here in a couple of days. And he goes, oh, that's a great idea. And he goes, okay, everyone, we'll reconvene here at 1 o'clock tomorrow and we will run the show. Billy got in his car, went to the airport, and left town. I came in at 1 the next day, and all the gear was gone. And I was sit down and go, well, you pushed a little too hard. And
you thought you were asking a very reasonable question, right?
And it worked with every other band I'd worked for.
Right. This is the great ZZ Top, though. I mean, these are guys that really can cut their own path. They roll around with machetes doing exactly the way they got to do it.
Oh, well, and they're unique in every way.
Every way.
Uniquely talented in every way. But
yes, sir.
When I naturally did things that pleased Billy during that first show, he called me in the dressing room after, and I didn't know. It sounded good to me, but I didn't know what he was going to say. He called me in the dressing room and he goes, my man. And he goes, have a seat. And he goes, okay, now we can get busy. He goes, get your notebook out. And I didn't have one.
I'd start writing on my arm about.
Well, he had one for me. He goes, let me get you one.
Okay.
So he got me a notebook and a pen, and we started running down how we were going to do things on the tour. And he was awesome from then on. With him, Billy is one of the nicest people I've worked for, one of the most generous people I've worked for. He's come to my house and visited. He's a very
really a sweetheart of a man. Yes,
he is one of the nicest people you could ever meet. Just meeting him, I've seen him be so gracious to people when we're out and about. But I've also seen him do some of the weirdest things I've ever seen in a human being. Well, we were going through TSA security one day, and they found a straight razor.
Oh, shit.
Okay. He hasn't shaved since 68.
That's right.
I thought that was kind of weird to be done, right? A set of knitting needles, 3 place settings of sterling silver china with cloth napkins. It was a pile of stuff. By the time TSA got through, it took 2 FedEx boxes to put everything in. And then he signed autographs for everybody, and we were on our way.
That is awesome. That's a very Spinal Tap moment,
Oh boy, Spinal Tap is nothing compared to that
great Billy Gibbons.
But never anything bad, never anything mean-spirited. It's just always overly nice to everyone I've ever seen him encounter.
Yeah, no, he's got a deep spirit and an incredible. He is he's really a national treasure, if you ask me.
He is. Yeah, he absolutely is.
Yeah, just an incredible cat. We did a thing with him with Queens of the Stone Age. He came in and just graced us with his thing, and oh my God, we let him loose, and it was just incredible. Really, it was a room full of kind of hired guns and badasses, and Billy Gibbons just came in. It was like James Brown walking in. He just nailed the thing down. It was extraordinary. It was one of those things you just never forget. I noticed, I follow you on Facebook, keep abreast with some of the stuff you get up to, and I see that you spend a lot of time. You have the handsomest cutest little grandson. You spend a lot of time with this little guy. What's that mean to you?
Dominic is awesome. He's 4 years old. He reminds me so much of my son when he was little, and he's with the pandemic, I haven't seen him as much as I would have liked to, but he lives up in Portland, Oregon. But he's just a joy. My kids are really important to me. I've missed most of their lives. My son is in a band called Soft Kill, which is doing really well. It's a rock band. My daughter has been immensely helpful in my career. When I started doing a pop band, I worked for Ariana Grande because she urged me to. I got an offer to do a couple one-offs, and she overheard it and said, "Dad, you got to do it. She's special. She's not like the rest.
Yeah.
She's a phenomenal artist." And she was absolutely right. And for 5-6 years, I ran everything past her before I made a decision.
Really?
Because she was more plugged in with what was happening at Kanye. She had a lot to do with me doing Kanye.
She sounds like she's your rabbi buddy.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
She's and she's been around it her whole life. She understands. She has perfect pitch.
Well,
if anything's out of tune, she's the first one to go, wow.
What's going on there? Yeah.
But no musical desire at all. She came to visit me with my ex-wife, her mom, and they went to a show and they flew to the next city while I rode the bus there. And our production manager was on that flight, and she saw him, and she went over to him and said, it was Chris Gratton.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, Chris, I've got some stuff I need to go over with you about the show. You need to change this.
She said
this. And to Chris Gratton, she gave him a rundown. He called me in the office the next day and said, "Hey, your daughter sent me down and told me I need to change a bunch of stuff in my show." And I went, "Oh God, this is not good." And he goes, "Well, she was right. Everything she told me is right. Now, how does a 12-year-old girl know this?" And my creative team isn't saying the same thing. And she hasn't figured out what she wants to do yet. So something in business, she's just not sure. I lost your audio. I've lost the audio. Can you hear me? All right.
We good? You back?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a band in here last night, a metal band in here, getting ready to do a streaming event, My Heavy Memory. We just took on, I'm not going to name the brand, but you can imagine what brand batteries we use, which we buy in bulk. I think I don't have to tell you what brand, because most of us use the same brand. And I don't know if I got a bad batch of batteries, but last night I'm flipping out batteries and IEMs like friggin' all night. I couldn't figure out what it was. I mean, usually I can get 3 hours out of these things and still have 90% left. I don't know what the hell's going on. So we just had a little battery meltdown. Maybe it's something in my packs.
COVID has disrupted a lot of the supply chains. I think, it's going to be a while before we're totally back where we were. I think things like stale batteries, and we're going to it's taking a little while to work all that through through the system.
Well, I think I'm going to, going forward, and I'm not kidding you, with this batch that I've got, we buy a shitload of bricks at once, for the whole of Sound Image, where, Sound Image. And I think I'm going to literally have to test these sons of bitches before I put them into packs at this point. The whole testing right out of with my experience last night and then what just now happened, that is unacceptable. So I might have to put one of my rookies and sit them down and have them go through it. And if I find a bad batch of these sons of bitches, somebody's getting a strong letter and a big package returned, because not cool, buddy. Well, I'm glad that you're getting a chance to do the granddad thing. It sounds like, well, I see that kid is really happy when he's with you. Some of those shots that you have are, it's a beautiful thing, It's kind of, I know a lot of us feel like we missed time. I can throw my hand up on this one. I could have been a better father in the sense of presence, of being available, you know. And I know this industry, I know this is something we've talked about that bothers you, that the industry takes a certain toll on relationships and family life. Was this something that you struggled with, and did it affect you and your family?
Well, I haven't hardly been home for the last 30 years. So, yes, it's definitely affected it. And quite frankly, knowing what I know now, if I had it to do over again, I would not do it. I would.
You
I
said
would
that
do
to me,
something
and
else.
that
Yeah.
shocked me. That I mean, especially with the amount of, I mean, you've had really stellar success in this game. Your name rings out across the industry, and for you to say that to me, and this is not the first time you said this to me, that's a very, I mean, that sticks. That's a heavy statement.
Well, but that's me personally. I haven't managed that part of my life as well as I've managed the career part
Sure.
of my life. But I spend more time with the career than the personal side, so I've gotten better at it. I mean, I've been married a few times, and it's not worth. I've enjoyed the success. I'm still mixing at my age because I'm afraid to stop. Because Trip Califf just retired recently, and I was talking to Troy Clare about it a few weeks ago, and what a hard decision that is when and I think Trip is probably the best, if certainly one of the top three, if not
Extraordinary.
the best. Well, he's a lot of the reason when I was looking to be a roadie, picked sound engineer, because I saw Queen in '75 and was absolutely blown away.
Yeah.
I'd never heard anything like that. The first great show I heard in an arena was Queen. The second was Davey Moore mixing Frank Zappa.
Wow.
It was just phenomenal. And Michael Abbott, the TV producer, I heard him mix Zappa a couple times in '77, '78. And oh my God, it was just absolutely brilliant. So I knew it could be done.
Yes, sir. Well, I mean, you just named the legends list right there. I mean, Jesus God, the only thing you haven't said is Glenn Johns yet. I mean,
in this business, you pick somebody like that and you emulate them in every way you can.
Yes,
and
sir.
In my day, you had to manipulate yourself up on the riser to look at their fucking settings on the board, which look remarkably like mine, but it didn't sound that way. But that's before I realized the subtleties. What an incredible difference all those subtleties make. Because it's, and keep in mind, when I learned this, the PA sucked. We did not have virtual sound check.
That's right.
The consoles left a lot to be desired, and on and on and on. So you had to, if you can master it with the obsolete, or the underwhelming
there you go.
options that are available to you, then when you start getting the better options, it's quite frankly, with the tools we have now, there's no excuse for it not to sound right.
Wow.
You're not.
I couldn't agree with you more, honest to God.
Well, and it's an analytical craft.
Exercise.
You're analyzing constantly. If you're smart, like I think most good sound engineers are really smart people too. Yes. They might not be well educated.
No, it's a different.
But it's a different type of smart, and they've analyzed it on a much deeper level. Like as happy as I was with the mix I was getting from digital mixers, I still miss the sound of transformers.
I have to agree with you on that to a great degree, and I think a lot of folks of a certain age feel that way. There's a certain warmth and things that happen there. I mentioned the X56. There's certain preamp issues. Yeah. You were saying? I'm sorry.
Well, that adding that back in, there's ways of doing that now.
That's true.
And so I've kind of migrated to a more hybrid system where the mixers is digital. The part that I need automated is digital. The sound comes from all the analog gear. I use an analog summing system. I use a lot of stuff inserted in the console. And it all has tubes and transformers, and it adds variables that you have to manage.
True.
But if you just don't go to sound check, that's a lot easier.
I think there's a lot of people listening with great interest in this moment right now that might be taking a page from your notebook here on that one.
You know what? Just comparing stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I work for Claire Global, so I have access to everything there is. So I use that access to compare stuff. I've set different consoles next to each other, and you know, I firmly believe all the digital consoles now, they all sound great. The modern processors have fixed the issues that we've struggled with previously. And it's now just the workflow that you like. And I don't use one console for everything or one brand of console. I jump from type to type, model to model. I don't really care that much about that. You know, it makes it more interesting to not use the same thing.
Sure.
All
Absolutely.
the time. So it's just a matter of trying new stuff and learning how to get the most out of it. Because
that's really it. Yes.
Well, and if you're trying a new way to get it, you might discover something along the way. I think mixing is a lot like medicine. You practice it. We're always practicing audio. No one's mastered it. No one but Trip.
But other than Trip,
and he's gone.
Yeah.
And well, you know what? In all fairness, the Trips, the Dave Cobbs, the Bruford, the Benji, the one name guys.
That's right. Yeah.
The guys that literally became known by one name because they were that good. And when I came up in the 70s, there was a handful of those guys on that level. And now our industry's 100 times bigger, and we've got a handful of guys on that level still.
Well, you know, you're not wrong.
Bigger handful, but still.
Yeah,
you know, it's.
I think you're talking about the Pooch and the Hutch and those guys. Yeah, because we got some all-stars out there, and then the younger set that are trying to move the ball forward. But they are definitely taking from the playbook of the Buford and the Benji, and there's just no two ways. And the Toby, let's not forget that.
Well, you know what? Those guys are all the guys before me are mostly retired now. I think Dave Morgan's one of the few that's still doing it. But they push the envelope. You know, that they set the bar so high that we had to really. I've had numerous discussions with Pooch. Is a real good friend of mine. We talk about this stuff a lot, and Pooch kind of came out of the same. Well, the Shoko ML. Way of doing things.
He's delightful. He's incredible.
Covering for Pooch made me a better mixer. You know, covering for Sean Sullivan made me a better mixer. I did a Matchbox 20 show on Stuart Bennett session that I honestly never understood. It sounded phenomenal. I just fired the snapshots, and I just started with them, and there was no rehearsal before the first show, so I just went with his session. But looking at it, you know, in the afternoon, I'm like, man, it was so much side chaining and everything.
Right.
It worked phenomenally well. But like I said, I never gained a complete understanding of what I was doing, other than it sounded good, so I just went with it. And but I learned stuff. The little bit I did decipher, some of it I still
employ. Yeah, you employ.
Well, if you think you're there, you're not going to be there long.
Yeah, you might want to go home at that point because.
Well, Pooch tries as hard as he can try every time. You know,
he does not phone it in. That is not his way.
Well, and when I see one of his shows or Chris Raybold's show, it just inspires me to try harder. And there's always something I hear that I'll go to him and go, "How the fuck did you do that?" And they always show me, you know, and it helps. And I usually implement it at the next opportunity. it's an ongoing learning experience, especially the technology's getting better and better and better.
And it changes so rapidly now. And there's an addition, and it seems to be in a 12 to 24 month cycle that it just keeps peeling out. I don't think there's a chance to really rest on your laurels. That's not really a thing anymore. That's not plug and play in the old days. You know, it just isn't a thing. So I want to jump forward a little bit because I got to ask you about Guns N' Roses. You know, this is a band that's, you know.
Well, the Guns N' Roses I did was Axl's Guns N' Roses.
Oh, okay.
Well, I did Velvet Revolver actually at the same time, unbeknownst to Axl, or I wouldn't have been doing Guns.
Well, actually, to me, of the two, since you brought that up, I'm happy if you are to allow me to jump over to Velvet Revolver because I absolutely enjoyed the shit out of that project. I thought that was extraordinary. Now, I know there was some giggles and bumps in that because of certain things going on, but man, what an experience between Matt Sorum and the team, and that band was. They had the power to turn goat piss into gasoline. Excuse my French, but that was really something.
Yeah, but it was an out of control freight train.
That's why it lasted 4 years, you know.
Well, yeah, and sadly Scott was the culprit in that. Well, he could not conquer his demons, as we know. But when I started there, he was completely sober, and he was the first one there every day. We had great conversations. Really came to like him a lot personally and respect him. And I felt really badly when he fell off the wagon. I left.
You got out of there.
I told him going into it that the minute that happened, I was going to leave because you can't count on it.
Well, and you probably had some sense of where that was headed. I mean, you know, we look at Lane's.
It wasn't going to be pretty. Well, I did the last Alice shows too. I did their last
Lane Stanley
shows with Lane before he died. They were open for Kiss, and I mixed. I've got a tape of his last show.
My God.
Somewhere at that tape.
What a tragic loss to the industry. The two people we're talking about, Scott Weiland and Lane Stanley, in my humble opinion, were two of the better frontmen of all time. I mean, voice-wise,
absolutely.
Vocal styling-wise. And I want to say that about Chris Cornell, too. Just those three had a lane. They owned a lane, and it's such a tragic loss to the industry. At that age, you know, so much left in them. And for them to just go away it was traumatic. It was traumatic. And Scott Weiland, you know, I had some interaction with him in STP, and I thought they were friggin' amazing. I used to enjoy that work a great deal. And when he was on, he really understood the audience. He really understood how to work an audience and really bring a show. And it's tragic that has to go that way. Sometimes I think some of the singers we work with carry certain demons that allow them to be at their high points, that brings them to their low points.
It drives them to be the person that everyone admires, and it also
what takes them out.
Drives them to destruction.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We talked about the great Mars Volta. Now, this is a band that is high energy. I mean, trying to. First of all, I love what the singer does. He to me is the rock and roll James Brown. The thing he. I mean, that is an exciting show. How is it to mix those guys?
Well, I did that band because of my son. That was his favorite band at the time. When I got the offer, I took it knowing that it would impress him.
Yeah.
I honestly had never heard him. At that point, I started listening to the stuff and really liked it. Through a weird turn of events, I only got 1 day of rehearsal, and then we were supposed to have 2 days of rehearsal, but they decided to do a surprise show at the Echoplex. And after that show, Omar and Cedric called me in the dressing room and congratulated me on surviving it. and they gotten a lot of compliments, and we started talking music, and that's kind of part of the influence of that band was one of Zappa's early bands and Mahavishnu Orchestra.
Yeah.
And when I started making those comparisons, Omar went, God, he goes, that was the inspiration.
Yeah.
That was the direction. And so the fact that I knew that.
Oh, I bet you that scored some cool points with them for sure.
Had seen those bands live, which they hadn't. They were like,
they weren't even
God.
alive. They weren't even alive. Yeah.
they knew I got it.
Yes, sir.
You know, and
Yeah.
I've had several. Kanye said that to me. Katy Perry said that to me. She goes, "You get it.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have to explain it. You already know."
Yes, sir.
You know, and it's that goes along. But I love music. I love all music.
Me too. Yes, sir.
I listen to music constantly. I never get tired of music. I listen to old music. I listen to new music. I love everything from classical to gangster rap.
Wow. Wow. I can't make that same claim, but I can definitely make the claim that music is my life. This is what I do. I love it.
Yeah.
It strikes me, and we're running out of time, but you know, I have A1 friends, they're very accomplished guys, you know, the Grammy Award winning guys that, and I'm not kidding you now, Toby. Now this might shock you because it shocks me. Because they don't listen to music at all anymore. It is so weird. They tell me, "Oh, I burned myself down on it," you know. And I try to get my head around. And we have these conversations, and I said, "Well, just tell me a song that you like right now." I can't get them to tell me a band. So how about a song? Nothing. They got nothing, and I can't imagine that. I'm going to take myself back and do myself in if this ever happens to me because this is the reason I'm here. I love the music, and I love that you said that because I stay away from this subject because I find it to be a little taboo and a little strange. But I can't imagine being in that position. I really live for the music, and it really informs and influences the way that I go forward when I deal with the artists right now and into the future. I can't imagine that position. So what a great thing that you still appreciate the music, that you have that vast array of influences, and that's extraordinarily important, in my opinion, extraordinarily important to our continued success in this business, and to be able to support our artists. It's that's my take on it.
Well,
but
the commonality I have with all the artists I work with is that love for music.
yes, sir.
You know, they all share that. If they see that in you, that's the first step to that bond I was talking about that leads to the level of confidence to where you've got the gig as long as you want it. You know?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Toby, I could talk to you all goddamn night. I really could, man. I write these things down, you know, just to keep a flow and keep track of things. And I swear to God, I got through half the questions. I got to maybe trick you into somehow back sometime in the future when there's time for both of us, which is going to be tricky because I have a feeling we're both going to be very busy going forward. But maybe we can capture some time where I can steal you away for an hour and pick this back up. I really, really enjoyed having you here tonight, my friend. It's just such a treat. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
You betcha, pal. You be well. Thank you, buddy.
Okay.
Good night.
Thank you.
Wow, what a treat, guys. It's the great Toby Francis. Really, again, I just scratched the surface. We didn't talk about many different artists that he's worked for that I'm absolutely fascinated by. I wanted to know how he got into doing. He's done Justin Bieber. He's done, like I mentioned, Guns N' Roses. The choices that he's made in his career are always with some of the biggest artists in the world. Fascinate me. I won't lie to you. They fascinate me. And so I'm going to get back to Toby. We hope we get him on the hook again and bring him back in because there's some folks that I bring on the show. There's just no way to jam it all into an hour. And I refuse to confine myself. So we're going to hopefully get Mr. Francis back on the show. I want to send a shout out to my wife. Honey, I love you. You're my favorite person on the whole planet, and I'm absolutely cuckoo crazy about you. Next week, we are going to be blessed with the great Alex Polillo. Now, this guy, he's the bass player for The Seeds. The Seeds, if you don't know, my friends, The Seeds was a band that was big in the late 60s. They had a couple really great hits. He's an extraordinary cat. He's got these rare recordings. He's a master archivist. This guy goes around. He's got the earliest recordings of The Who. He does these incredible things. He's a very interesting fellow, an extraordinarily cool dude. He's going to be right here sitting in that chair over here next week. We'd love for you to tune in. We appreciate, there's a million places you could have been tonight. We appreciate you being here with us. We hope that you have a good week, that you're taking care of yourselves and each other. We do this every Thursday at 7 p.m. We're going to do it until I'm too busy that I've got to actually do my real job. As long as I can, because I actually enjoy it. We appreciate you very much. I hope you have a good week, and we'll see you again next Thursday at 7 p.m. Until then, have a good night.